So this is my initial inspiration. After a rainy day, I saw this beach plum bush and the jagged black branches, as well as the puffy white flowers, the scratchy grasses, and of course those occasionally pops of pink. I was really attracted to this. So with holding this in mind, I decided that I was going to do a series of abstract studies. So I began by gridding off this piece of Arches cover printmaking paper that I happened to have in the studio. You could use any kind of a paper. I taped it off into 4 equal quadrants. This paper is 22 by 30. So you can do the math and figure out which each square quadrant is. I then start aggressively mark making all over this with every kind of black marking material I could find. So from charcoals to marabou art crayons to permanent markers. Then I had some pops of red with a marabou art crayon. I started smushing in the charcoal with my fingers. And then it came to a point that I wanted to seal it. So now I am squirting matte medium all over it and using a rubber brush to just spread the matte medium around. This is going to seal the charcoal layers underneath, as some of them were not necessarily permanent. Once I'm done sealing everything in, I'm going to let it dry a little before I begin with acrylics. For this project, I have opted to use Nova colors. Here I'm actually just scraping through and making some other marks with the rubber tool by removing some marks. Now I'm blopping on some white acrylic Nova color, and I am going to put a piece of paper on top of that and just move those blobs around. So it's a kind of a printmaking process that's going on now. Trying to find ways to cover this whole surface without thinking too much about the subject matter, except holding on to those ideas. So here I'm kind of thinking about the puffy flowers. Before I was thinking about the jagged, scratchy lines. So I'm going to go back and forth between those two ideas and concepts, and then revisit the pops of pink. Here we are. There's the pops of pink. I'm bringing back that idea of pops of pink. Again, I'm not being concerned about those 4 lines. Now I'm mixing up I'm using a red and green palette primarily for this painting. I am using Nova Color acrylics. I'm not using any gray right now. This is a mixture of a red and a green. Here I have adjusted the camera so you can see. So I have a yellow green, probably a magenta. I think I have a phthalo green going there. Some white. I continue to add matte medium, just in case at some point in time I wanted to switch to oils after this was dry. I like to either use a clear gesso all the time, or sometimes I will use matte medium. I think I was just running out of clear gesso. I like clear gesso because it creates more of a tooth, so that then afterwards if I want to switch to oil, I don't have to worry about adhesion issues. So here I'm just mixing up a variety of grays created by the 2 greens with some red added to that. So that one's a little more purple. Again, my goal right now is really just to get the whole space covered and not fall in love with anything. And believe me, this is a wicked hard process because I'm used to that critical editor mind constantly jumping in and saying, oh, what's this? Or, oh, this is a good spot, you should leave it. But at this point in time, I am trying. Now, I've come back in with some marks. So intermittently, I'm going to pick up some charcoal. These lines aren't quite as aggressive. I have sped up this timeline, but I am working pretty quickly with this. I just cut out all the dead space if there was any. So there's some really dark. I think that might be indethroned blue that I pushed towards green a little by adding that yellow green in it, but I wanted something really, really dark. So it was either the phthalo green modified with the red, or it might have been the indethroned blue. So finding some more colors. Again, the goal right now is to keep moving to every quadrant, crossing over the tape, just being oblivious to the divisions, and trying to fill every empty space, but keeping alive constantly in my mind that initial inspirational idea. Again, I was moving really quickly, but not quite this quickly. Now, back to the lines. Again, these lines are a little... Thinking about that scratchy, jagged black lines created by the Beachplum bush. And some more pops of pink. Let's bring back pops of pink. They were a really nice contrast to the dark gray day. But I'm sure some of you have noticed what happens when branches and trees can get very black after a rain. And I was struck by that. Now bringing in some lighter areas. Again, just trying to cover up every spot that's raw paper at this point. Because I'm working with acrylics, I didn't have to worry about gessoing the surface first. If I had started this with oils, I would have either used Arches oil paper or I would have gessoed first. Now I needed darks. So here come the darks. Let's lay in some darks. It was all getting a little too much the same. That's some more matte medium because I was trying... Whoop, now we're just dragging the brush, trying to get a variety of those black milks. I don't want them to all look the same. I don't want them to all be made with charcoal. So here we're getting a very kind of lyrical line created by dragging the brush very slowly. It was slower than this, obviously. But it could be very boring watching this too slow. Again, I'm really not thinking about each individual composition. I'm just playing. A little later, I will worry a little bit more about that. Now I just discovered there was this big area on the right-hand side that I had missed that was needed to be filled in. So I'm just creating some colors and trying to fill out the whole format. Look at that, just jabbing away with that paintbrush. Yeah, oh, that's a nice green. Very pretty blue-green. By limiting my palette this way, I automatically get harmonious color. So if you notice, it's a very limited number of colors. I am using their, I don't know, it was like a hot pink or fluorescent pink color from Nova Colors that I'm usually mixing with another color. I also got their fluorescent red, which is kind of crazy. It's a nice bright, oh, there we are, filling in that extra empty space that I had forgotten about. But trying not to just fill it in all the same, always keeping in mind moving colors from one quadrant to the next. I was very proud of myself to be able to try to not think too much about the subject and just play and respond to what was happening in front of me. Bringing in some more darks is very important. So here come the darks. Ooh, here's some more darks. Yep, look. Darks are coming. And here's some more neutral colors that I'm bringing in. So I do want it to have a nice variety, mixing that pink in to those greens. Again, I'm still really not trying to think about the objects or what the subject matter is. Just balancing out the amount of lights, the amount of darks, the amount of grays, the amount... Oh, here comes the fun part. This is something I love to do. So I've this piece of paper. I have a tube of black paint there, and I am drawing some of those jagged black lines on this piece of paper. There's something about this process that is very freeing for me because I am not really in control. And here I am transferring and printing, again, not really looking and thinking too much about where I'm putting it. But you get lovely ghost-like imagery of it. And while I'm in printmaking mode, I'll take some scraps of paper and just scribble around on my palette there. And again, apply what happens, something totally random that I have no control over, onto other pieces. I wish I could zoom in on that so you could see it, but you'll be able to see it in the final rendition. And sometimes I'll use a tool to try to get more specific types of marks. Here was an experiment. I had these empty vials, tubes that were like used to dispense medication that I filled up with paint, hoping that I could squirt them out of the tube, but it wasn't squirting too well. But so I said, what the heck, we're just going to just take it direct. So I keep going on to trying to get it to work on the piece of paper. I was going to print off the piece of paper, but the paint was too thick. I did use it on a larger painting that is outside of the frame of this picture, because there were some cool marks that I made on that brown paper, but it was a little too much to contribute to this. But again, now I can also lift some of those areas where the paint was too thick and move them around to other areas. So with this printmaking technique, again, this is just some piece of scrap newsprint that came in with some packaging material. So when they send you things in the mail, wrapped in paper, I save all those pieces of paper and I just keep moving it around. Now I'm coming back and I am thinking a little bit now about what's going on in each quadrant. And I've decided to bring in some delicate black lines. Again, these are, even though this is sped up, you can tell that it's a slower process. It's a very skinny brush that I'm just kind of dragging along, trying to make some lyrical flowing branches and the ones that I think need it. Some different colors. I don't want them all to be black, so I'll make some that's like a more of a grayed version. So different colors, not always black. Having variety, so they're similar but different. There's still lines. Nope, we needed a real jagged line. I was feeling like there just wasn't enough of that jagged energy that I was inspired by. Now I'm approaching the completion of this. I'm going to actually take the tape off. I am done. I've decided I'm done. And again, these were just intended to be studies that I'm going to use now as a jumping off point for some much larger pieces that I hope to video later for you and put together, that I'm currently working on. So I was having a little issues with the tape. Always fun to figure out what's on top of what. I'm trying not to rip the paper. It's so much fun. The final reveal is always so exciting to see the individual. So now it's done, and I'm going to give you some individual close-ups of what they look like. The paint here is still very wet. And I'm really happy right now with the spontaneity of them, and I think I have some ideas now that I can flesh out. Here they are full screen, so you can see each one. And some are more successful than others, but I think they are all jumping off points now that I can use for my larger compositions. If you enjoyed this, you can check out more of my work, and thanks for stopping by.